Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Lewis Speaks 2023, and today I want to talk to you all about why friendships don't last these days. There are so many people out there having difficulties in their friendships right now. You know, it is just so hard to maintain a relationship. I recently had to terminate a friendship of 27 years because I felt like this friendship was not very supportive of the person that I was and also the person that I'm becoming. And so I had to just let it go. And I started to examine why we are unable to keep friends in this day and age. And I came up with a list of reasons and explanations as to why friendships don't last these days. Now, this list is by no means exhaustive. It includes just some of the explanations why friendships don't seem to last. One, there's no stabilizing agent. And when I say that, I mean that there is no divine source, there is no governing body, there is no God in these relationships sometimes. When I think about a romantic relationship, there is something in the scriptures called a threefold cord where you have the partner, the other person, and God. And that's what makes the relationship work. You need a divine source, some outside mediator that can help settle disputes and difficulties. The reality is, we are going to rub each other the wrong way. We are going to get on one another's nerves. We're going to clash. But we need a common denominator, something that we can actually lean into to help us mediate the difficulties. And I think that a lot of these friendships nowadays, they don't really have a divine mediator. They don't have God, good orderly direction. They don't have that. They don't have that. And because of that, they're ending prematurely. So you need that stabilizing agent. Another reason why friendships are ending, the second reason, is poor communication skills. We in this generation do not know how to communicate effectively. We send text messages and then we read into the tone of those text messages to derive some kind of inaccurate conclusion about how someone must be feeling about us. The way that we communicate our grievances, the way that we communicate our feelings is totally inappropriate. Totally inappropriate, and it's ineffective. We're so quick to jump to blame. We're so quick to try and shame and undermine someone and undercut them. And it's just creating this tension and this rift. I think a lot of times social media and technology and this screen as chaperone, this electronic chaperone has created this divide and this inability to effectively communicate our feelings, you know? And I see that all the time. I see it all the time, Another reason I would say that we have difficulty sustaining relationships and friendships these days is because of proximity. Some of our friends that we knew, they moved, and it's just so difficult to create a stable relation and maintain a stable relationship with someone when they're so far away from you. When I think about how we make friends when we're younger, we oftentimes make friends because we share the same classroom, we share the same interests, we are close, we live in the same town, we go to the same place of worship, we go to the same stores, we are in close proximity. And I think as you get older, oftentimes your friends move on. They move to different countries, to different cities, to different states, and it's just hard to maintain that bond, as it's just difficult, and it's unfortunate, but it's reality. I also think another reason why our friendships don't last these days is because of the lack of honesty, the lack of sincerity and honesty. We are oftentimes, when we're younger, we're not really honest with ourselves. And therefore, we can never be honest with our friends. We oftentimes find ourselves agreeing to things that we really don't want to do. We oftentimes find ourselves saying yes to things that we really don't want. And this inauthenticity, it creates a divide. You know, I think when we're younger, we oftentimes look for availability as opposed to compatibility. You know, as we begin to engage in radical honesty with ourselves, we begin to see that we want more, and we require more than just the bare minimum. We require more than just a text. We want our friends to show up for us in real ways. We begin to get honest with ourselves, and that's what also creates that rift. Because as you become, I guess, as you grow into yourself, and here's the truth, you start to realize that certain people, certain spaces, certain places no longer fit the person that you want to become. And so you find yourself growing out of those people and those places. And that's when the friendships end typically. It's sad, but true. You hope that your friends can grow with you and you both can grow together and actually have the motivation and put in the effort to grow together. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. Sad, but true. Another reason number 5, why people and friendships don't last these days: extreme selfishness. Extreme selfishness. The friend starts showing up only when it's convenient for them. They only want to hang out when it's something that they want to do. But when it's not, they find every reason in the book, every excuse in the book. They try to busy themselves with other activities so that way they can't show up. They either consciously or unconsciously try to sabotage certain things. And it's this extreme selfishness that really just erodes friendships. Extreme. They can't be present for you. You just don't feel supported by them. You always feel as though you're always having to run to their crises. You always have to run over to their lives. No. It gets exhausting after a while. So that extreme selfishness is not okay. Another reason why is a lot of people, they place high premiums on being right than they do on being in a healthy friendship. They want to be right all the time. They want to be right, And that's a product of their ego. They always want to be right. They always have to be the one that is right. And it's just like, come on. Over time, that begins to really wear on a friendship. You'll argue this person down all the time just to have the last word and be right, as opposed to finding common ground. Now, I think also a major one, 7, there's a change in lifestyle. There's a change in growth. There's a change in goals. There's a change in your morals. There's a change in your beliefs. We as human beings change. We change our minds, we change our clothes, we change. And over time, our needs change. Where once we needed just somebody's availability, now we actually need their support. As we get older, especially as we get older, we need more support. We need people in our lives who are supportive. Oftentimes, we change our careers. Our family structure changes. Our lifestyle choices. We no longer go to the club, or we no longer choose to engage in a lifestyle that we once engaged in before, So we're constantly evolving, especially when you're in your 20s, you're constantly evolving and changing and trying to figure things out. And it's so hard to maintain a friendship when you're constantly changing, because who you are today may not necessarily be the person that you are tomorrow. And so when you, I guess, basically are not this person, are not that same person, some people may accuse you of switching up. And we all switch up. We all change. We all grow. But it's really difficult to maintain a friendship because it's like this. They either grow with you or they have to go. It's just that simple, And I think over time, it gets exhausting trying to convince your friends to grow with you. We stop making the effort to invest over time. We stop making the effort to invest in one another, and it's this lack of investment that eventually results in the friendship dying. It just ends. And so you just outgrow your friendships. Another reason why friendships end and don't last these days are a lot of unhealed wounds. There's a lot of friends that I have had in the past who are not even aware of their wounds. They don't do the work because they don't see a problem. They don't see how their past traumas have interfered with the friendship and continues to interfere with the friendship. They don't see how their wounding is just destroying the friendship. And they don't want to do anything about it. And even when they do see it, they're just not motivated to go into therapy, talk about it, process it, work it out. There's a lot of misdirected anger and this need to kind of recoup based on past losses. I've noticed that. For example, a friend may have sustained a loss or a traumatic experience in the past, and what they'll do is they'll use your friendship as an opportunity to work that past trauma out. They'll try to recoup and gain healing by destroying you, by being nasty, cruel. And it's just like, wait a minute. I didn't do this to you. Don't sit up there and try to make me pay for the mistakes of someone else. There's a lot of misdirected anger out there and unhealed wounding. And a lot of transference too. A lot of transference. That's what happened in my former friendship of 27 years. It had to end because there was some transference issues there, And so I had to kind of just dead it. I had to dead it for self-preservation, So it's those unhealed wounds that definitely contribute to why friendships don't last these days. Another reason is unmanaged grief and also historical and current events. And what do I mean by this? Unmanaged grief. There's a lot of grieving as a result of COVID-19, as a result of the police brutality and the senseless murders of Black people, as a result of so many different things, the devaluation of Black lives, And it's like, how does this relate to the end of a friendship? A lot of people are grieving, and a lot of people need a lot of care. And oftentimes your friends are not Jesus. Your friends are not miracle workers. Your friends are your friends. And I think these expectations, these unrealistic expectations, and these demands, these excessive demands, those two things right there, unrealistic expectations and excessive demands, can murder a friendship. You place these undue requirements on your friends, and it's too much for them, especially when they're in a state of grief. I think with COVID-19, we lost a lot. There were emotional, social, physical, mental, spiritual losses that we sustained as a result of COVID-19. And a lot of us were ill-equipped. We were ill-equipped to deal with these things, And so what ended up happening is that we would lean into our relationships and our friendships extra heavy, oftentimes creating an undue burden on an already overburdened person, And that's why a lot of relationships broke up in 2020. Aside from the excessive closeness, always being up under your partner, you also had these high demands and these unrealistic expectations as a result of the hurting and the unmanaged grief, So I think that's what really causes a lot of these relationships and friendships to end, is these unrealistic expectations and these demands, these burdensome demands, So we really have got to check that, I think another reason is the inability to accept constructive feedback. A lot of times when you tell your friends that they ain't worth a damn, a lot of times they get all up in arms, they get defensive, and they just cancel you. We live in cancel culture right now, where if you say and do something that someone doesn't like, rather than them sitting you down and processing that experience and trying to salvage the relationship and the friendship, they just cancel you. They just cancel you. They write you off as though you never even existed. They don't change their ways. They find it so much easier to change friends. You don't like what I'm doing? Bye. I'll write you off. I won't change my negative behaviors. Oh no. What I'll do is I'll just basically just write off the person who has a problem with it. If you have a problem with my negative behaviors, okay, fine. Canceled. And so you can't sustain relationships like that if you cannot accept and receive and internalize the constructive feedback of your friends. You have to realize that your friends are your friends for a reason. Your friends are there because they want to support your growth. Usually, any good friend wants to support your growth. And if they're telling you something about your character that needs work, chances are it's noteworthy. It's noteworthy. Pay attention, lean into that, try to figure out what's going on. Don't just be so quick to cancel them because they don't agree with you. I think what ends up happening, you vocalize your concerns, and then what happens? They get defensive. They put up the wall. And then they feel like, oh, you're not a friend because you don't always praise and compliment and stroke their ego and stroke their mane, make them feel wonderful. Your friend is not always going to tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes they're going to tell you what you need to hear. And you have to be prepared to accept that. And I think a lot of friends don't want to accept it. And so what ends up happening is that they cancel that person. They go about doing the same behaviors that they engaged in. And it's this cyclical cycle. They meet another person. That person cancels them. And it's just this round and round and round. Here we go. So that's the thing. You got to be able to accept constructive feedback in your friendships. You know, I also think another reason why friendships end prematurely in this day and age is because there's no formal ceremony that bonds friendships together. Like in marriage, you have the engagement, you have the actual marriage and commitment ceremony. And then when you want to get out of that marriage, you have to file papers and go through the divorce proceedings in order to get out of that. There's no divorce proceedings with friendships. There's no ceremony that bonds people together. And the thing about it is this. Oftentimes, couples who have, like romantic couples, when they have marital discord or marital problems, they are invested in working it out because they realize that they've invested so much. They invested so much money, energy, time into the union. And to get out of it, it's just more work than it's worth. So they might as well work it out. With friendships, it's not the same thing. There's no formal ceremony that we have to go through and engage in with our friends. So they find it easy for us to just throw us away. We're expendable in their eyes, you know? And so this is the throwaway culture. You know, I think what makes it difficult to throw someone away is when you have an intertwined life. You know, when your friends have become a part of your family, and when they've met your family, when they've met, you know, your children and your extended relatives, you know, it makes it very difficult for them to want to throw it away, you know. But in friendships, usually there's no formal ceremony that we engage in that acts as a solidifying agent in a bond. You know, it's not a tie that binds. So that's another reason. Also, our generation has what I refer to as toxic independence, in the sense that they have this mentality that I don't need anybody, I'm never wrong. You know, it's this I don't need anybody, I'm never wrong complex. And having that complex, that's not going to take you very far in friendship at all. At all. If you always think that you're right and you don't need anybody, here's the truth. We all need somebody. We all need support. And if you constantly throw people away with this mindset of toxic independence, like I'm going to be all right, I'm going to be all right. Independence is wonderful. when balanced. But these people nowadays, they're toxically independent because it's coming from a place of wounding. They're hurt. They learn never to trust anybody. When they did trust somebody, someone probably hurt them. So they learn to do it all alone and not to need anybody. But that's coming from a place of wounds, unhealed material in our psyche, in our spirit, that's creating this rift in our friendships. You know? When your friends don't see that you need them, oftentimes they're not motivated to stay because they're like, it doesn't matter whether they stay or go. It doesn't matter. Either way, this person is just going to be all right without me, so they move on. So that's one reason why. Another, these overinflated egos. Overinflated egos. You know? Everybody's always thinking that they're the best. They're this, they're that, they're this. You know? That's a personality disorder. You know, this narcissistic personality disorder that people have today, they're so self-centered. Their ego is overinflated. And it's ruining their friendships. You know, I also think that there's a toxic culture that we live in. The toxic culture that we breathe in, you know? And there's a culture of cruelty. And this could be seen on reality TV. We're watching this. The media is feeding us this. It's telling us that when you're mean to somebody, you get money, you get notoriety, you get fame. So we're taking that into our relationships, this cruelty, this nastiness, this just brazen disrespect of one another. It's this evaluation of one another that's sickening, sickening. People see that you win when you're cruel. So let me be cruel to my friends. But in reality, that's not working. We're watching reality TV, but that's not reality. That's not reality at all. That's a deception. That's a lie designed to trick your mind into thinking that this is the proper way to be. This is the proper protocol to be, to follow, you know, in order to have friends. You ever seen these reality TVs and how cruel they are to one another, but they call each other their best friend? Oh, please. And so we're adopting that mindset and we're bringing that mindset into our friendships, into our relationships, and then we're wondering why they don't last. That's why, you know? I would say lastly, friendships don't last these days because a lot of people are projecting their insecurities onto one another. They're projecting their own feelings of inadequacy. A lot of your friends right now hate you. A lot of them are jealous and envious of you. It's like on one hand, they admire you, but on the other, they don't want you to exist because you take attention away from them. You make them feel inadequate. Your spirit irritates their demons and their unhealed wounds. So it's like, here we go. You know, this is why friendships don't seem to last these days. And me personally, I'm the firm believer in this next statement. You know when to end a friendship when you get the sneaking suspicion that it never really began. Let that soak. And think about who in your life do you feel like your friendship never even began with them. You know? Who comes to mind? Who comes to mind? You know when to end a friendship when you get the sneaking suspicion that it never really began. If a person pops into your head immediately, that relationship is worth examining. Because when I did that, and I saw a couple of people in my life who I continue to entertain a relationship with, it made it that much clearer. These people were not my friends. These people were just hanging on because, for one, they felt it was beneficial to know me. They know that I'm a good-natured person. I'm definitely loyal, and they're looking for that. They don't like me. They like what they feel I can do for them. That's what they like. And so after knowing that, you're just like, okay, you gotta get clear on your friendships these days, because a lot of people are pretending. A lot of people are pretending. A lot of people are just holding on because they are afraid to be alone. They really don't care for you or like you or see you even. They don't see you. You could be spending years with somebody and they don't even understand you. They may know of you, but they don't understand you. And what's the difference? The difference is this. When you know somebody, you know their name, you know a couple of demographic information, you know a couple of demographics about them. But when you understand them, you know their past. You know why they do what they do. You know why they behave how they behave, and you can use that understanding to try to offer grace. A lot of friendships these days don't offer grace. They don't offer grace. All they do is just want to win, dominate. So these are just a couple of reasons why friendships don't last in this day and age, you know? And if you're looking for a solid relationship, a solid friendship, you have to make sure that your friendship is on solid foundation. What's the foundation that it rests on? I encourage you to definitely have a spiritual foundation, because that right there will definitely help out in terms of finding and keeping friends. So once again, I hope this video was helpful for you. Definitely like, subscribe, and share this video. And I wish you all a socially abundant year. Definitely make this year the year that you find your tribe and you find people who are right for you. And don't settle for less. Don't settle for availability. Settle for true compatibility based on a strong foundation of spirituality, love, mutual respect, and devotion. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you again for listening. Peace, y'all.